Dankeschön, Flo. Shukran, Gazilan, CSC. Hello, everybody. Masal Khair. It's great to be back in Abu Dhabi for Finance Week. Very happy to see you all. Let's go straight into the topic of today. And I would love to ask Kate here to the left of me the very first question. Now, because we are in the UAE capital, right? From your very global perspective at the Global Private Capital Association, how do you view Abu Dhabi's position as an innovation and startup and just capital marketplace?
Great. Thank you so much, Martina. It's such a pleasure to be here again at ADFW. First, this is a little gratuitous, but I can't help going back to the opening speaker who I heard briefly this morning at the venture session, was an academic looking back at the history of Silicon Valley and trying to map out through data how to be a successful venture investor. As far as I'm concerned, the rest of the world does not need to learn from Silicon Valley. I think we have moved on. There are new models, and the innovation that is happening outside the U.S. is a really important part of what's driving global innovation today. So I just have to throw that in there. Of course, the UAE has been a capital exporter for many, many, many years, well over, probably 2 decades. And I think the shift that I've seen in Abu Dhabi over the last decade, or particularly last 5 years, is instead of being a financial exporter of capital that is investing in, say, developed markets, the U.S., looking for financial returns, today Abu Dhabi is looking for strategic outcomes. And they're looking for strategic outcomes in key sectors to transition the economy and to think about the environment in the country that Abu Dhabi wants to be for the future. Within that, there's been a really growing relationship between Abu Dhabi and Asia in particular, India, China, Southeast Asia, and a lot of strategic capital and ecosystem building across those markets. So we've seen both financial capital moving out of Abu Dhabi into China, into those markets in key sectors, but also drawing back in technology and strategic capital back into Abu Dhabi. And I think that is really the repositioning of Abu Dhabi today. Within that, I would highlight 4 sectors. There's clearly a focus on food security in Abu Dhabi, and so there have been strategic investments in ag tech globally. I would mention there was a large round where G42 took part in a deal in Indonesia for e-fisheries, and again, in each one of these, you can assume that there's something that's accruing back from an innovation or a technology perspective to Abu Dhabi. Another key sector is biotech and health tech. Most recently, Mubadala did a large round for biopharma business in China. Sorry, it's just jumping out of my head right now, a little jet lagged. In partnership with the global consortium of investors, but of course we see so much happening where new life sciences businesses are being brought to Abu Dhabi. So health tech, biotech, of course, climate tech and everything related to climate transition and electric vehicles. And we've seen large players here invest in India. There was a round where ADQ was in a $1 billion round for Tata electric vehicles in India. And we've also seen global investors crowding into startups. Tendered raised a $30 million Series A recently from some global investors here in the UAE. And then finally, of course, artificial intelligence. It's the buzzword of the day. It's what everyone's focused on. There's just, the UAE is positioning in such an important way, and they've really proved themselves as the center of gravity by pulling in Microsoft with that $1.5 billion partnership with G42 Asset Management. I mean, that was quite a long conversation, and I think some hard choices were made, and Microsoft decided to put the money here and decided to partner with
Abu Dhabi seems
G42.
To be the place to be, Kate. That's why we're all here, right? And so many interesting, appealing and attractive sectors as well. Noor, Haven't seen you in some time, so a lot of developments here in this part of the world, also in the startup industry, right? I'm sure we have a lot of startups here looking for opportunities. At Global Ventures, you've always been a great advocate helping startups as well. So tell me a little bit how you see the potential for Abu Dhabi-based startups.
Thank you, Martina. Good to see you, Kate, ladies, everyone. It's really good to be here. I'll keep it short. I think this place is definitely one of the new kind of centers of entrepreneurship globally. So I run a VC firm. We're based here. We've been a Hub 71 ecosystem partner for, goodness, maybe 7 years now since it started. It's been fantastic. And the reason is that I think a large part of the regulatory infrastructure here is very intertwined with the financial infrastructure, which is very supportive of entrepreneurship. I don't think this mic.
We have some mic issues. If
fine.
we could check the sound.
I'll hold it like this. No, it's fine. I think it's closer and closer. So the way that we see it, the UAE in general and Abu Dhabi specifically really has this ability to move things forward. And the tech-forward government regulator enables that. So we just made an investment in a company based in Abu Dhabi called Biosapien, which is in the tech bio space, which enables the delivery of any medication, so think oncology, locally via 3D printed chips that are stapled or stitched onto tumors. So the whole process has changed. It's less than 10% of the cost of traditional chemotherapy treatment. You have none of the side effects, and this is now in Cleveland Clinic and live clinical trials. So to think through the regulator enabling that along with the infrastructure, the hospital providers, along with the founder that is based here, to provide a solution for hundreds of millions of people across the global south is just fundamental. Back to Kate's point is Silicon Valley. That did incredibly well. But right now, you have billions of people living in the global south that are looking for new centers of entrepreneurship. Ones where you have very close access and understanding of local, regional, or continental problems, and then the ability to build solutions that really help solve those immediately in a way that works for these markets. And I think that's where these cities are playing an instrumental role, bringing the world's best talent, world-class tech, and tech-forward regulators to solve these massive problems. So for us, this is just a wonderful place to be. We've been here for years. We've invested in 61 companies, and we'll continue to do more.
Amazing. Can't wait for 2025 already. Fariha, you are a global citizen like all of the ladies here on stage, moving between Riyadh and Delhi and New York. How do you see this marketplace, the capital of finance, Abu Dhabi, when it comes to fostering innovation, investments, and what kind of unique opportunities do you see here?
Thank you so much for that. And 2 decades in the US, and I can't imagine anywhere else besides here. It is so safe. I just left my handbag open at the back, and I know that
nobody leaves the room, please.
Yeah, exactly. Coming back to Stride Ventures, we're the first and only Indian, fund manager to get a license here at ADGM, and this is for investing in the region. We're the largest debt provider to the startup ecosystem in India, and we see an incredible opportunity here in Abu Dhabi and in the UAE in particular. The preference for this particular emirate to build a knowledge-based economy has led to a lot of innovation. There's a huge amount of startup support. To Noor's point, the regulatory frameworks, the visa, the ease of doing business in here, and the ease of, you can imagine, right? Anyone who's been in the US and tried the H-1B lottery, it's pretty hard. But imagine here, you can come, you can set up, you can get a job, you can start a startup. It's extremely supportive. We see the startup ecosystem over here. It's probably a few years behind India, but the speed to market and the access to capital is absolutely amazing, and that's exactly why we're here, to make sure that we are providing debt to high growth startups and bringing the culture of urgency and high performance to the region, which already exists, but we're very, very happy. We work very closely with Hub 71 and ADGM, and we're regulated by ADGM, and it's been fantastic working with them and providing debt to the startup ecosystem.
Just a quick follow-up. How big is Stride Ventures' presence here in the region or even in the UAE itself?
Yeah, of course. So in India, we've cumulative deployed close to $1 billion to date now. And in this region, it's a $250 million fund with one turn. We will end up deploying close to $500 million in this region. So that's how large we are.
That's a significant amount. Madiha, last but not least, for the first round of questions, BNY has been focusing on advanced technology and sustainability as well. How do these priorities align with your strategy at BNY going forward, especially in this market?
So I think for this market, it's really sort of capital markets that really intersects with what we prioritize, right? So if you think about what BNY does, we are critical infrastructure for capital markets globally. So 1/5 of the world's investable assets flow through BNY's platform. We custody over $50 trillion of US dollar assets. We are the leading US Treasuries settler and clearer in the world. I could go on and on. But really, this region is so focused, and the UAE in particular, on financial markets and capital markets, that the intersection makes a ton of sense. So if you look at some of the statistics, I think ADGM, AUM are up 250% year on year. DIFC, AUM are up 60% year on year. The UAE capital markets are now about to cross $1 trillion USD market cap. So all of that intersects very, very well with our priorities. And I would call out 3 priorities specifically. One is sort of capital markets, data analytics, and AI that we're very focused on. We have a scale platform in the US, and we're keen to bring it here. Another one is sort of wealth technology. We launched, along with our partners, ADQ and Lunate, Alfea last year out of Abu Dhabi. It's already got 100 people working here in ADGM. Roger was on one of the earlier panels today. So wealth tech is another area of priority for us. So really, when it comes to capital markets and financial markets technology, wealth technology, data analytics, and AI, these intersect very closely. The other thing I would mention is that the UAE is partnering with some of the same organizations we are partnering with globally. So I'll take Microsoft as an example. Obviously, there's a partnership between Microsoft and G42. AI is a priority. Microsoft Azure is also a global strategic partner for BNY. And we are investing heavily in AI on our side, and we're actually one of the most advanced financial institutions when it comes to AI deployment internally and for customers. So those themes are all very, very aligned with what Abu Dhabi is focusing on.
Fascinating insights, ladies. Now, we have just come back from COP29, Kate, and you have always been a very strong advocate for climate investing as well. How do you see here Abu Dhabi also as a place for climate change and financing in that space?
Well, I was going to talk a little bit more broadly about some of the more impact lens, but again, climate is a massive driver of investment today. It's important to note that we are in a down cycle, even though you feel a little bit less in this part of the world. Fundraising for private equity and venture capital is off significantly from its peaks from a few years ago, and one of the two pieces that are countercyclical are everything related to climate and everything related to AI. So we see a lot of activity in the climate space, and I think in many ways, this part of the world was somewhat ahead because there's already been a focus on transitioning the economy out of an oil dependence. So we see a lot of partnerships happening between investors in this part of the world, and of course, you have the success of areas like companies like Mazda or others that have been built. But the other thing that I just wanted to highlight for a little bit from a broader perspective around the outcomes of these investments and the impact lens is what metrics are being used for success. For many decades, we've had this idea of a unicorn, and achieving unicorn status is a goal in and of itself for a startup and a marker of success. At our organization, we stopped talking about unicorns, a few years ago, because let's face it, that's a financial speculation. That's the round, maybe, if you were in 2021. One thing was to be a unicorn in 2021. Another thing is to be a unicorn in 2024. So just looking at what the underlying business is and not thinking only about the day that you're going to IPO or exit that company and you're going to have your cash out, which is very important. And let's face it, that venture capital is there to deliver returns to their investors. But where is that company going to be 6 months after the IPO, a year after the IPO, 5 years after the IPO? Let's think about the sectors that are being invested in and the business models that are being generated and the impact, very important here in Abu Dhabi, in the UAE, on society, right? Because you're looking for job creation, you're looking for environmental sustainability, and frankly, I worry about this. I mean, there are a lot of people opining on the impact of AI. I think thinking about the impact of AI on job creation and on the workforce that you want to have in your country is something to be taken into consideration alongside the short-term financial gains to be made.
We've heard a lot the word collaboration and partnership, so this is definitely something that we have to keep in mind, and that's also very much enshrined here in Abu Dhabi. Noor, you are a venture capital leader, one of the top women running the show here. Tell us a little bit about your advice for investors looking at Abu Dhabi and what kind of do's and don'ts they should be aware of.
So I think from a venture capital lens, there's so much opportunity here in the region. I think that this is one of the centers of it. And I think that when we take a look at sectors, people do get very excited about AI and energy and climate. And those are very, very important sectors, conceptually speaking. But I do think there are lower hanging fruits. So when we think about where do we want to invest today, and we are, by definition, Series A investors. So companies have $1 or $2 million in revenue. They want to grow very quickly. They want to get to that $10 million mark in 2 or 3 years. So when we take a step back and we do a lot of research, which we publish on our website about different sectors, the fundamental question we ask ourselves is which industry 5 years from now is massively different to 5 years ago? And specifically so in this part of the world. And today where we come out with is, yes, AI is interesting. It's an enabling factor for all industries. If you don't use it in the next 2 years, you're probably going to fall behind your competition. But industry-wise and thematically, we believe that supply chain technology and agri-tech, so anything related to food security, are at inflection points. 5 years from now, the way we manufacture things is going to be unrecognizable to 5 years ago. Just something as basic as 3D printing or additive manufacturing. 5 years ago was still in proof of concept. Today it's properly commercial. And 5 years from now will be massively scaled. The way we ship things, drone deliveries, everything you think through the supply chain, all the way from what you manufacture and where to how you get it delivered, is today at an inflection point. And that's huge for this part of the world, which has historically been a trading hub. Then you think about agri-tech. The way we produced food 5 years ago, again, indoor farming was still massively loss-making in proof of concept, maybe a handful of vegetables or fruits like tomatoes. 5 years from now, when we think about indoor agriculture and the way that we do root grafting and the way we do everything on how we want to feed our people is going to be so different. And why? Because in this part of the world, again, we import 85% of our food, as do many of our neighboring countries. So when we take a look at that and we say, we're going to solve this, it's an acute problem for us. If you take a look at Europe or the US, they import less than 30% of their food. So when you say food security is important, and we have population growth, and we import 85% of our food, then the mission is there to say, how do we change this? And we embrace technology at a much faster pace, and we leapfrog, and we invent. And we've now invested in 3 agri-tech companies that all have patents across the board, from indoor farming all the way to root grafting, all the way to material science, to allow indoor farming to absorb light but not heat. So we're really solving massive problems in this part of the world. So when investors come here and say, what do we invest in? It's great to invest in AI. There's so much to do everywhere, but these are the 2 industries that we find 5 years from now are massively different to 5 years ago, at inflection points with real companies creating real revenues, solving massive problems for this part of the world.
Very important to focus on the low-hanging fruits in agri-tech as well. And you know, Noor, I lived in Dubai for 5 years, just after Dubai debt crisis, and the progress that we have seen in sustainable agriculture and technology since then has been absolutely amazing. And of course, we know about the sustainability and diversification goals of the UAE government as well. Fariha, venture debt also plays a very important role when it comes to climate financing and impact investments and so on. How do you think that Abu Dhabi can align, with sustainability, diversification goals, while at the same time making financial returns for investors?
Thanks for that. It's quite a I'll make it quick. There's a lot to talk about, but we really put our money where our mouth is, and I think that if I can share some stats, we've done more than $300 million in deployments in the climate sector in India, which is more than any climate-focused fund in India. We're trying to take that up to $1 billion within the next 3 years, and so it's very similar. We're extrapolating those priorities to this region as well. We have a huge bias for working capital requirements, or we try to invest in companies where there is an impact in a climate sort of sector play. We like battery manufacturing, battery recycling, ride hailing, etc. So we've done a lot of work in the EV and climate space specifically, and that's a priority for us in this sector as well. We've been hearing a lot, and obviously for the last year with COP as well, there's a huge boom of climate tech startups over here. They're a bit on the early stage, but we're looking at growing with them and making sure that we can provide them with the capex at least, right? So it's non-dilutive. So we do debt. We are sector and seeds agnostic, but we can do from Series A to pre-IPO, and that is very broad. We can do someone who's early stage, we can do someone who's late stage, and it's been fantastic for here because we hear Abu Dhabi really prioritizing the climate space as well. So we're looking to grow with the ecosystem, and yeah, that's largely our priority. And like I mentioned, we're extrapolating a lot of those priorities from India to here as well.
Lots of good news and interesting to learn about those opportunities and connections as well. Madiha, now also global corporates, big companies have been shifting their focus more towards emerging growth sectors. It took a long time, but finally the time is now, it seems. What role can Abu Dhabi play in this transition? And can you explain maybe more about M&A sourcing and financing as well?
So let me touch on very quickly 2 or 3 ways that we innovated BNY and then how Abu Dhabi can support there, right? So one, we actively take minority stakes and venture investments in companies that have a product that strategically aligns with what we're doing, and that check comes with a POC at BNY, so it has to make sense. It has to integrate with what we're providing or deliver something to our clients in the financial markets or capital market space, right? When it comes to digital assets, for example, that has become a full-fledged business unit within the company, given how core it is to some of the work that we do, right? So that's no longer an incubation unit, right? That is a full-fledged business unit. And then growth ventures, which is the team that I'm on the leadership team of, we build, buy, and invest in and co-build new ventures, right? That sort of look to scale specific technologies that are strategic to what the bank is doing globally. So I mentioned Alfea, for example. That's a great example of us co-building in Abu Dhabi, building for the region, from the region. We have wealth tech in the US, but we decided not to just export it here. We wanted to build it from here for the local market while leveraging the team expertise and some of the back-end infrastructure that we've built out of the US business. We're now trying to do something very similar for data analytics and AI for financial services. And really where Abu Dhabi can play a role is it's not just capital, and we're not asking for the capital to leave Abu Dhabi and go abroad. We want to build here with strategic partners, not just financial partners. So obviously capital is one core piece. The other core piece is actively partnering with a partner here who, for example, can provide domestic compliant cloud that's suitable for financial services. Another partner could be a stock exchange or other capital markets participant that wants to contribute data and monetize their data on our data analytics and AI platform. So we bring the software, other players provide other key strategic pieces, and we co-build here together, right? So I think that, given Abu Dhabi's focus on supporting certain sectors that are so close to what BNY is working on, both in terms of capital markets, AI, wealth tech, etc., I think it's really about co-building for us.
We just have 4 minutes left, so that gives 1 minute per lady here on stage, and I'm Swiss, so I need to finish on time. Kate, in 1 minute, how do you see the outlook for investments next year, and where are your priority areas?
Great. Well, you give me the opportunity 1 more minute to mention that it was a year ago the Global Private Capital Association, announced its partnership with the Middle East Venture Capital Association, MEVCA. So it's been great to be here through that partnership over the last year. We're looking to do a lot more on training and ecosystem developing in this part of the world. Markets overall, listen, we're hoping there's all of the macro stuff, like where are interest rates going to be and the rest of it. I feel like this part of the world is a little bit more protected, frankly, from those trends that are exported by the U.S. So I'm looking to see the UAE and the GCC more broadly continue to develop its relationships globally and be a real hub of energy and excitement. You feel so much more positivity being in this part of the world than being, say, well, I shouldn't say it, maybe in
Elsewhere.
the U.S. these days.
Let's be diplomatic, exactly. And let's move here, why not? Noor, your 60 seconds.
Well, I'm not going to give it away because I've just completed my book, which comes out next month, which has all of the secrets of where to invest in the next 5 years. It's called Coming of Age, and it's about the region's rise of the entrepreneurial ecosystem here over the last 10 years and what we're looking forward to over the next 10. So look out for it starting January 10th.
And we can have a book signing ceremony at the next ADFW,
Absolutely.
right? Okay, next, Madiha, in 1 minute.
Lots of trends, but I'll mention two. One is how to increase access for retail investors to private assets, whether it's private debt, venture capital, private equity, how to make those types of assets more accessible to retail investors. And we've just launched a platform for that in the US. It's a tech and ops platform, and hopefully we bring it here soon. The other trend I would mention is, I know it's becoming a buzzword, a cliche, but machine learning and Gen AI in the capital markets and financial markets technology space will truly be both from the workflow efficiency point of view, but also from sort of insight generation, driving performance, and being able to look across as an investor, your public and private assets, and really being able to extract insights is going to be critical for that.
Fariha, in a nutshell, your outlook.
Yeah, I'm very keen on this particular region. I'm really, really bullish, and that's one of the reasons why we're here. We're seeing fintech, we're seeing consumer, and we are seeing a lot in the climate space as well. So we're really bullish on those. Private credit as an asset class has really boomed. It's all over the world. It's booming in India, in the US, in Europe, as well as here. So we see a lot more in the venture debt and private credit space. One of the reasons why we're here, and we're really excited about it. And fixed income is something that's very palatable to the investors here, to the family offices, institutions, etc. So from the LP base as well, we do see a huge influx of funds coming into this specific sector. There's a lot of co-investments that are now becoming important, and the family offices here are now also maturing and getting a little more professionalized. And so co-investments is now becoming more important to them, and we're very bullish on bringing that to the forefront for them.
We are definitely all very excited about 2025. We have a book coming out. We have a 195 Women Equality song being released as well in January. So thank you so much, ladies. It's been fun having an all-female panel. And shukran gazilan. Next up, Flo.
Thank you.